Hello, everybody. Nana Des. How's everybody doing today? It is hump day, the middle of the week. There's a lot of stuff going on this week, isn't there? We have people that are alive. A lot of stuff going on Capitol Hill today. Who the Mango Moose Knuckle seems to think is a Democratic hoax. Can't imagine why, do you? So anyway, I am going to talk about a journalist who has been, he's an author, and he was investigating Epstein, Donald Trump, and SEXUal blackmail. And his name is Nick Bryant, and he's been around for a long time, and he was a guest on Chris Hodges' YouTube channel. And Chris Hodges is a journalist and an author, and he's also a Presbyterian minister. He has a Master of Divinity from Harvard University. The man's credible, and I love watching him. He has a lot of good guests. So what I'm about to say is very interesting and very unnerving. Nick Bryant has been investigating and researching these things for years. So if you are going to be triggered by anything, now would be a good time to just not watch this and carry on with the rest of your day. There's not real intimate details, but it's still the topic. So if you need to leave, Nan loves you. Be good, be safe, and have a great rest of your day. I love you. Take care of you first. Newcomers, I do get into topics like this, not all the time, but sometimes they are pertinent, and today is the day. So, welcome. Love me, like me, share me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and hangers on, welcome back, and hang on. So, Nick Bryant has been investigating and researching these things for years, and a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, he's just trying to sell a book. No. He has been putting this stuff out there for years, when they were doing the dance parties and everything at Mar-a-Lago with Epstein and the two of them inviting 30 young women. So yeah, he reveals corruption, coercion, cover-ups, and conspiracies. Everybody wants the list, but apparently it has already been out on the web since 2012. So any of the bullshit that Pam Bondi and her DOJ is trying to say that they gave 33,000 files, no, they didn't. Everything they gave you has already been out there. And you can Google it. It is out there. Maybe less than 1% of those 33,000 was new information. The rest is all out there. Mr. Bryant, very bravely, in my opinion, exposed Jeffrey's black book. In it was a list of names, details of the very wealthy and the very connected. So I imagine that would be the people that donated huge bucks to their favorite candidate, best president ever, donated huge buckets of money to him, all backdoor, of course. And this is the big wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I give you a couple million now. You look the other way. And that's what's happening, because now Trump's saying it's all a hoax. The stuff in this book and getting it published showed just how complicit, lawsuit shy, and their desires to protect the perpetrators instead of allowing their exposure so other kids wouldn't be destroyed is immense. The victims end up having to sign NDAs, maybe to get some shut-up money that I imagine would go for years of therapy. If they took that Epstein fund money, then they had to sign NDAs to say they wouldn't speak to anybody. So I imagine, like the Catholic Church did for years, as soon as a priest was reported to the diocese, most families wouldn't dare go to the police, because back even when I was in school, if you ever said anything about the priest, he was the next thing to God. You probably got a smack upside your head. The diocese would just ship these people off to another diocese, and the problem was solved for them, not for the next group of kids at the new parish. Now, I hope Pope Leo will continue to work to get rid of that evil bullshit. Jeffrey Epstein's little black book first came into the public in 2009. One of Jeffrey's house managers in Palm Beach, he tried to sell the book for $50,000, but unfortunately, it was to an undercover FBI informant. The houseman was arrested and jailed for obstruction of justice. He has since died of cancer, but he did mark the page and circle the names that he thought might be connected to Jeffrey's trafficking ring. The book made its way to Nick Bryant, and he knew, I suppose, that he had to tread carefully because of the effect of this information and what it would have globally on political figures, leaders around the world. And I imagine the backlash would be like a tsunami of denials. And yes, it's happening. Threats and fabrications of the author's character, authenticity, and purpose for the writing of the book. They're all going to say he did it all for money. No, he did it because of his journalistic instincts. And I imagine a lawsuit or 100. Needless to say, he had trouble getting a publisher to take this project on, so he published the Black Book on Gawker. Gawker's no longer around. It used to be a media outlet, but at least Gawker verified the authenticity of the work before they published it. In the book is a list of over 1,000 names. There were, and I'm going to say different groups, global celebrities, international billionaires, politicians, royals, academics, well-known Epstein associates, and don't forget lawyers. Now, just because their names are in this book does not mean they had any association with Jeffrey's sick and twisted dark side. Some entries had several phone numbers in them, tied to them, many forms of contacts, in fact, which makes me think those are the ones that were more personal, shall I suggest. I think the more numbers somebody had for Jeffrey, the more, or Jeffrey had for them, the more he could contact them no matter where they were in the world and what they were doing. We should all know by now Donald Trump, Alan Dershowitz, and I will get back to him in a minute, Prince Andrew, Lex Wexner, Donald Trump, Naomi Campbell, Ehud Barak, for example. Some deny knowing Epstein. Some say, yeah, I knew him as an acquaintance. Other than Ghislaine, nobody has been made to pay for what was done to those boys and girls. You would think that enough people would have read this stuff on Gawker, and maybe a few would have wrote it out in the open, but the so-called mainstream news had some of this information for years and did nothing about it. I would almost bet $1 to a donut that Rupert Murdoch, his kids, the Daily Mirror, which I believe was Ghislaine Maxwell's father's paper, the National Enquirer, would have copies of shit in there somewhere. Stuff the FBI probably doesn't even have. Because that was their stock and trade back in the day, the gossip, right? But no, even they sat on it. Like the Karen McDougal story. They said that they were going to give her all these perks and all this stuff, and they bought her story for $150,000. But no, they buried it. Stormy Daniels paid her $30,000, buried her story, pay off the star, and squash the story. That's what that was about. NBC, CBS, ABC, etc., they're terrified of lawsuits then, but now they have to kiss Trump's ass because now they're capitulating to his every little whim and every hemorrhoid that falls out of his ass and sell out their journalists and fire MSNBC, the good ones like Joy Reid, Katie Fang. Yeah, they'll get rid of them. However, the full impact of Epstein's connections weren't clear until his arrest in 2019. Most of the coverage was very limited to a few names already made public like Trump, Clinton, Gates, and Dershowitz. All of the victims mentioned on the news only seemed to mention the ages of the girls at 14. Mr. Alan Dershowitz is trying to get that age of consent lowered to 14 so they can marry and everything. I think the law would say, well, back then it was 18. That was when they committed the GRAPE of a child. who was 14, and he got off because one state has this law. So yeah, most of these guys won't get charged because if they're 18 or they're 20 and she's a 14-year-old child, don't matter. And it doesn't matter if she consented because she isn't cognitively alert enough to make that decision for herself. Nobody seems to be mentioning Maria, who was only 12 years old, or the 13-year-old Katie Johnson that Jeffrey was giving on-the-job training to. There's apparently some 9 and 10-year-olds that were there as well in these victims, who are probably in their mid to late 20s now. So Dershowitz said, or words to the effect, 14-year-olds are having or doing sexual things with their boyfriends now, so why not make it legal? Oh yeah, sure, let's not destroy that young man's life over sex he had with his girlfriend. Child friend, more like it. What a crock of shit. Now, Nick Bryant is one of the very few that is willing to name names and ask why these names aren't being held to accountability. He kept investigating, and he wondered how someone like Epstein could carry on his evil with impunity for decades, even though the allegations were out there before even his first arrest. And also, the many victims that were screaming to have their voices heard. So, Nick Bryant seems to be the go-to guy when it comes to asking anybody questions about Epstein, and his work is the most cited in most articles. He is the independent source in Epstein research. He has been doing it for years, and nobody is listening to this man and hasn't been. He's been doing it for years, and the whereabouts of the original Black Book, well, the Justice Department, it's believed to have at least one copy that was confiscated from one of the raids on his many properties. The Southern District of New York said they have personal files, digital backups, and hard copy logs from his homes in Manhattan, Palm Beach, U.S. Virgin Islands, and New Mexico. But so far, the DOJ has not released the contents of any of those files or the so-called Black Book. The evidence that is out there is from court filings, civil lawsuits, and, yes, leaks. Pam Bondi File Report Number 1 is a document that conspiracy theorists claim was leaked or hinted at during the internal investigations. Disclaimer, there is no verified evidence that Nick Bryant's name appears in, no credible release of such a report by the Justice Department or the Florida AG's department has ever included Bryant's name as a participant, co-conspirator, or informant. His involvement in the case is journalistic, not legal, and his exposure of the Black Book stands outside the courts as a public figure facing effort to force transparency. So why did the information stations back away from this story for so long, or did the smallest bit of coverage and then they dropped it? It was like yesterday's news. Is that what they were going with? Or could it be that the owners of these papers and the media outlets were involved? That would be my guess. That, to me, is like the Roger Ailes piggery. It took a while, but Murdoch had to shake him off finally. But he did shake him off. So what's different now? It's the victims who were mostly kids, not adults, and everybody everywhere should care about that and want to get to the bottom of that. And instead, MAGA is doing their damnedest to protect, cover for, and lie for those who are involved. They were all for releasing the Epstein files. Release the files, until they read the files. And I think because they read them and seen what the Mango Moose Knuckle was up to him, all of a sudden, oh no, now Comer has sole distinction on what gets redacted and what doesn't. He wants to work, oh, this is bipartisan, is it? then you get the Democrats sitting as co-chair with you, and the two of you go through that and see what needs to be redacted or not. You stumbled and fumbled all over yourself, Cummer, when it come to that question, but no. You refused to take a vote about having a vote on both the Senate and the House floors, and seeing as Republicans are in, the majority in both, your day will come. You will rue the day that you put yourselves before those girls. All those so-called Christians, like Katie Britt the other day, in the Oval Office, standing there looking all glorious at her leader and clapping. Yeah, she's the one that gave the rebuttal speech after Joe Biden's State of the Union. She said Joe Biden was responsible for a little girl getting sex trafficked, but she lied about that story because she didn't meet that girl at all. She didn't meet her. It was something she heard, and there was a panel set up, and she happened to hear something about somebody. But she was out there. She wants to get out there and try and change the laws. Why doesn't she start with her own fucked up state? Why doesn't she start there in Alabama? That's where she needs to start. No, or Carol lying her ass off there. Her little Christian cross must be burning through her chest. She just lies her ass off all day standing up for Trump. Oh, he's not part of this. You've read it. You fucking know he is. That's why you're going so hard against him. Unless politicians, journalists are free to vote for the victims and write the truth without having their livelihoods ruined or their lives threatened and torn apart and threatened to be fired, democracy and the rule of law will be buried under the rock in hell where Trump will be when he leaves this planet. I'm just saying. So anyway, this bullshit going on, all of a sudden they were all for the Epstein files until they went through some of it, and they're going, oh, we have to redact it, we got to... Pam Bondi had that file when she was the AG in Florida. She had that file. She went through it. You goddamn right she went through it, nosy bitch. She had to go through it and find everything. She knows what was in that file. She knows exactly what's in it. When she became the DOJ, she knows what's in that file. She had friggin' 1,000 FBI agents working 24/7 around the clock, redacting anything with Trump's name on it. You think they didn't find anybody else's names in there that they could come across? They were just looking for Democrats' names, that's all. Everybody else's is redacted. I bet you $1 to a donut. She's as crooked as the day is long, that bitch. So I'm just saying, she can take a long, hard suck of my arse and everybody else in the United States of America, because this is going to go sideways. It really is. And when Trump came out today and said it's all a Democratic hoax, with all those victims that Mini Mike I've Got No Fucking Johnson had an interview with and listened to them all, now he's starting to go, oh, well, maybe we don't want to know all of it. It was heart-rendering. It was heart-rendering. But now he's going to try and stop the rest of the files from coming out? Yeah. I bet you when those girls were telling their stories back there, his little accountability app on his watch was burning a hole through his wrist. Or through his zipper, one or the other. But anyway, I'm getting too crazy about this and time's ticking on this video. So, 99 loves you. Be good, be safe. Please take care of you first. And please don't let these victims hang out to dry. Please don't let them hang out to dry. They need our support. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. It's not a hoax, people. It is not a fucking hoax. These women went through hell. And they were little girls when it happened. Like I said, some as young as 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. So that 14-year limit that they seem to have embedded in their fucking brain, pay no attention to that. There's a lot younger victims. Okay. Love me, like me, share me. Don't forget to subscribe. And please, take a breath. Put your feet up, relax. That's what I'm going to do. I love you all. Sorry this was so ranty and crazy. But anyway, I love you all. Take care of you first.